You ever notice how the loudest person in the room often says the least? The ones who interrupt, talk over you, rush to respond, they think they're proving something. But what they're really proving is that they're not listening. And when someone isn't listening, you don't have to fight to be heard. Because the truth is, presence speaks before your voice ever does. See, when someone talks over you, the instinct is to match their energy, raise your voice, defend your point, prove your ground. But the higher road, the wiser road, doesn't rise to meet chaos. It stands still and lets the storm exhaust itself. That stillness, that strength, that pause, that's power. Because it's not about winning the moment. It's about mastering yourself in it. When you detach emotionally, you're not checking out, you're checking in. You're saying, I refuse to let your noise rewrite my peace. You realize their interruption isn't about disrespect. It's about insecurity. And your job isn't to fix their insecurity. It's to protect your integrity. So the next time someone cuts you off mid-sentence, I want you to breathe. Just breathe. Let them talk. Let them spill their words. Because when they're done, and they will be, the room will remember the one who stayed grounded. You don't have to reclaim your voice. You never lost it. You simply chose not to waste it. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough not to crumble. You're grounded in something deeper than validation. You're anchored in purpose. And purpose doesn't panic when it's interrupted. It just waits for alignment. Remember, this confidence isn't loud. It's consistent. Authority isn't about volume. It's about energy. And peace, real peace. It doesn't beg for space. It holds it because sometimes the most divine thing you can do is not to react. Just stand there in your calm and let your composure do the talking. When you master that, no one can talk over you because you've learned how to speak without even saying a word. When someone talks over you, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their noise. That moment when your words are cut short, when your voice is drowned out, when you feel the sting of being unseen, it's easy to believe you've lost something. But what if you haven't lost anything at all? What if their interruption isn't a subtraction from you, but a revelation about them? Because when someone talks over you, it exposes the volume of their insecurity, not the silence of your value. People who truly carry confidence don't interrupt, they listen. They understand that attention is respect and silence is strength. But those who rush to dominate a conversation are often trying to fill the void of their own uncertainty. Their noise is a shield. It's not about you. It's about the space they're afraid to share. And when you internalize that truth, everything shifts. You stop taking interruptions personally. You stop shrinking to fit inside their noise. You begin to see the difference between someone talking over you and someone worth talking to. Your worth is not measured by how loudly you speak or how much space you occupy in a conversation. Your worth is constant, untouched by interruptions. It's not something that can be muted, overlooked, or overshadowed. And when you really know that, you stop fighting for validation and start standing in quiet authority because you understand your voice carries power even in silence. Think about this: noise demands attention, but truth commands it. The one who talks over you may win the moment, but you win the meaning. You hold the weight that lingers after their words fade, because people remember tone more than volume, presence more than pressure. And when your response from peace, it carries more impact than any argument ever could. So when someone talks over you, let them reveal themselves. Let their noise do what noise always does. Draw attention, not respect. You don't have to compete with that. You don't need to raise your voice to prove your value. The power in you doesn't need validation to exist. It was there before the interruption, and it remains after. The noise fades, but your worth, your quiet, steady worth, endures. Silence is not weakness, it's authority under control. Most people misunderstand silence because they confuse noise with strength. They think the one who speaks the most wins the most. But real strength is not in the volume of your voice. It's in the mastery of your restraint. Silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you know the value of your words and you refuse to waste them on ears that aren't ready to hear. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. There is a sacred kind of strength that exists in silence. It's the strength of someone who doesn't need to defend every truth or chase every misunderstanding. It's the strength of someone who knows that time and truth will always reveal what words cannot. When you choose silence in the face of noise, you are not surrendering, you are standing, you are choosing not to let external chaos rewrite your internal peace. And that's power, quiet, steady, unshakable power. When someone interrupts you, provokes you, or speaks over you, silence becomes your armor. It's not passive, It's intentional. Because silence doesn't say, I have nothing to offer. It says, I know exactly what I carry, and I won't throw it away for approval. You're not retreating, you're rising above. You're saying without saying that your voice is not for noise, it's for purpose. And purpose doesn't rush. Purpose waits for alignment, for timing, for clarity. The world teaches you to respond quickly, defend fiercely, argue loudly. But spiritual maturity teaches you to pause, to breathe, to discern, to recognize that not every attack deserves an answer and not every moment requires a reaction. Sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing and let your peace be the final word. Silence is the language of those who've learned to master themselves. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about refusing to be controlled by it. Because once you understand your worth, you realize that not every conversation deserves your participation. The loud may seem strong for a moment, but the calm endure forever. And in that calm, in that sacred stillness, you find your authority, your confidence, your control. Silence doesn't hide your power. It holds it. True confidence doesn't compete for space. It creates its own. The person who is truly grounded in who they are doesn't need to interrupt, prove, or perform. Confidence isn't about being louder, it's about being certain. When you know who you are and what you carry, you stop trying to fit into spaces that were never designed for your authenticity. You stop shrinking to be accepted and stop forcing your way in to be noticed. Because real confidence doesn't ask for room, it makes room by its very presence. You can always tell the difference between someone who's trying to be seen and someone who already knows they're visible. The first one pushes, demands, and competes. The second one simply arrives, calm and collected, knowing that their presence already speaks. You don't have to prove your importance to people who can't recognize it. You don't have to compete for a seat at a table when you were born to build your own. Because confidence isn't something you perform. It's something you carry quietly. When someone talks over you or tries to dominate the conversation, it's a test of whether you believe your voice matters only when it's heard, or even when it's not. Confidence knows that being overlooked in a moment doesn't erase your impact. You can let someone take the microphone because you know they can't take your message. You don't have to battle for attention when your purpose was never meant to be confined to one room or one opinion. The insecure chase visibility, the confident cultivate value. One needs to be seen to feel significant. The other knows their worth is already established. True confidence understands timing. It knows that silence doesn't mean absence, and waiting doesn't mean weakness. It means you're choosing to operate from peace, not pressure. You're not competing because you've already won the only battle that matters, the one within yourself. So when someone tries to overpower your voice, don't push back from pride. Stand still in purpose. Remember, you were never here to take space from anyone. You were here to create it. And wherever you stand in truth, the atmosphere adjusts. Confidence doesn't fight for attention, it transforms it. You can't teach someone to respect your voice, but you can teach them how you respond when they don't. Respect is never something you can force out of another person. It's something you reveal through boundaries, composure, and consistency. When someone talks over you, interrupts you, or dismisses what you say, that moment is not about convincing them to value you. It's about deciding how much of yourself you'll offer to a space that doesn't. Because people learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself in their presence. If you meet disrespect with anger, you match their level. If you meet it with silence, you transcend it. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know that dignity doesn't argue for acknowledgement. It embodies it. You teach others through example, not explanation. When you maintain calm in the face of disregard, you send a clear message: my peace is not up for negotiation. That's how respect is taught, not through demand, but through demonstration. You can't change the character of someone who interrupts you, but you can change the atmosphere by refusing to react emotionally. You can pause, take a breath, and calmly reclaim your space, not to win control, but to hold integrity. When you do that, you shift the dynamic, you stop feeding the energy of disrespect and start showing the strength of self-governance. Because sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is restraint. There's a deep kind of freedom that comes when you stop trying to earn what should be freely given. Respect is not a reward, it's a reflection. And when it's not reflected back to you, your responsibility isn't to chase it, it's to maintain yours. You don't need to teach someone why your voice matters. You need to live like it already does. Your calm response becomes a mirror, and sometimes that mirror is what awakens awareness in others. So the next time someone talks over you, don't let frustration lead. Let presence lead. You can't control their behavior, but you can control the lesson you leave behind. The lesson that says, I don't demand respect, I define it. And that definition begins with how you carry yourself when someone else forgets who they're speaking to. Detachment is not indifference, it's clarity in motion. It's the ability to stay centered when everything around you is trying to pull you off balance. When someone talks over you, challenges your calm, or tests your patience, detachment allows you to see the situation without being swallowed by it. You don't disconnect because you don't care. You disconnect because you care too much about your peace to hand it over to chaos. Detachment is not coldness, it's controlled warmth. It's the decision to love your peace more than you love proving a point. When you detach emotionally, you begin to see people as they are, not as you need them to be. You stop personalizing their behavior. You stop reading disrespect as a measure of your worth. You realize that someone talking over you is not an attack on your value. It's a revelation of their own restlessness. They're not louder because they're stronger. They're louder because they're unsettled. And when you detach, you stop letting their noise determine your energy. You start choosing responses from wisdom, not reaction. Detachment doesn't silence your emotions, it refines them. It gives you space between what's happening and how you respond. In that space, you find power, the power to decide what deserves your voice and what doesn't. Because not every moment demands engagement. Some moments demand elevation. When you rise above, you don't abandon the situation, you redefine it. You move from reacting to leading, from defending to discerning. It takes spiritual maturity to detach. It means trusting that you don't need to fight every battle to win the war within. It means accepting that peace doesn't always look like resolution. Sometimes it looks like release. You don't chase understanding from those unwilling to give it. You simply let your silence speak for you. That's clarity in motion. So when someone talks over you, let detachment guide your response. You don't have to convince them to listen. You don't have to match their energy. You just stand firm in your truth, knowing that your calm is not passive, it's powerful. Because the one who can stay peaceful when provoked isn't disconnected, they're deeply connected to something greater, themselves, their purpose, and their peace. Every interruption is an opportunity to demonstrate composure, not combat. It's easy to see an interruption as an insult, a personal challenge to your authority or your worth. But in truth, it's a moment, a test, that reveals what leads you emotion or wisdom. When someone talks over you, you are being given a stage, not to prove your point louder, but to prove your peace deeper. Because how you handle disruption says far more about your strength than how you handle agreement. Composure is not about suppressing what you feel. It's about directing it with discipline. When you feel that spark of irritation, that urge to interrupt back, that desire to reclaim control, composure whispers, wait. It reminds you that true control is not gained by reacting. It's kept by remaining grounded. People often mistake silence for surrender, but in reality, it's strategic. It's choosing not to give away your power to someone else's noise. You're not losing the moment, you're mastering it. Every time you respond with calm instead of chaos, you teach the room what real authority looks like. You show that respect isn't demanded through dominance, but displayed through restraint. When others see you stay composed under pressure, they see leadership. Because composure doesn't come from needing to win, it comes from knowing you don't have to. That's what separates presence from performance. The person who interrupts is ruled by impulse. The one who stays composed is ruled by purpose. When you remember your purpose, you no longer chase validation. You no longer compete for space. You simply wait for your turn, and when it comes, your words land with clarity because they're not driven by ego, they're driven by truth. Interruptions will always happen in conversations, in life, in moments that matter most. But each one is a mirror reflecting your growth. Will you react or will you rise? Will you mirror the chaos or model calm? When you choose composure, you don't just protect your peace, you elevate the energy of the entire room. Because composure is contagious. It shifts atmospheres, quiets noise, and reminds everyone watching that power isn't in being the loudest. It's in being the most centered. Power doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it simply pauses until the room is ready to listen. There's a quiet kind of authority that doesn't need to shout to be heard. It doesn't rush to prove. It doesn't compete for attention. It simply waits because it knows its presence already carries weight. True power is patient. It understands that timing is as important as truth and that the right words said at the wrong time lose their impact. When someone talks over you, the temptation is to speak louder, to push harder, to make sure your voice breaks through the noise. But wisdom knows if you have to force it, it's not the right moment. The pause is not weakness, it's awareness. It's the understanding that silence can speak louder than sound, that when you stop talking, the noise around you begins to reveal itself for what it is: insecurity trying to sound like importance. Real power doesn't wrestle for the spotlight, it lets the light find it naturally. Because power anchored in peace doesn't need performance. It's not in a hurry to be acknowledged, it's secure in the knowing that what is real will always rise. When you pause instead of reacting, something shifts. The room feels it, the energy changes. People notice the stillness and the steadiness in you. They realize that you're not operating from emotion, you're operating from understanding. And understanding doesn't fight noise, it transcends it. The pause becomes a statement: I am not controlled by your chaos. That's what makes silence so powerful. It commands attention without asking for it. When you speak again, after the pause, your words land differently. They carry depth because they were birthed from discipline. You didn't speak to defend, you spoke to define. You didn't talk to win, you talked to lead. Every powerful person knows that there's a rhythm to influence. Sometimes the most commanding move is to stop talking and let presence do the work, because when your energy is grounded, your silence becomes magnetic. The room adjusts to you. The noise fades, and when you finally speak, they listen, not because you demanded it, but because your stillness taught them how. Your calm presence is often louder than their anxious need to be heard. There's something undeniably powerful about a person who remains composed while others rush to fill the silence. When someone talks over you, interrupts you, or dominates the conversation, their noise isn't power, it's panic, it's the sound of someone trying to secure significance. But when you stay calm, when your energy remains steady, you create a contrast that exposes what's real and what's restless. Because stillness always reveals noise for what it truly is: distraction. Calmness isn't passivity, it's precision. It's knowing exactly when to speak and when to wait. It's choosing peace over performance. The person who is calm in chaos is not disconnected. They're deeply connected to something stable within themselves. They're not trying to win the room. They already own their presence. That calm, quiet confidence carries a vibration that commands attention more effectively than volume ever could. When your spirit is settled, you shift the atmosphere without even saying a word. People may not understand it, but they feel it. Your peace becomes the loudest thing about you, because calm energy communicates certainty. It tells others, I'm not threatened by your noise, and I don't need to prove my voice to validate my worth. You stop competing for space because you realize your presence already occupies it. The anxious need to be heard comes from insecurity, from a place that believes silence means insignificance. But true strength knows that silence is never empty when it's filled with confidence. Your calm makes people listen differently. It slows the room down. It reminds everyone that not all power needs to announce itself. Some power just stands there, steady, grounded, undeniable. So when someone talks over you, resist the urge to fight for airtime. Let them run out of words while you stay anchored. Because the moment the noise fades, your calm presence will still be there, and that's what people remember. They may forget what was said, but they'll never forget how it felt to stand near someone who didn't flinch, didn't fold, and didn't force. That's the kind of presence that speaks volumes without raising its voice, the kind that turns calm into a form of authority. When you're secure in your purpose, you stop needing validation from those who interrupt it. The moment you truly understand why you're here, what you carry, and who you are, the noise around you begins to lose its power. You no longer chase approval because you're anchored in assignment. The interruptions, the dismissive tones, the people who talk over you, they stop being threats and start being reminders of how unshakable your calling really is. Because when you're grounded in purpose, distraction can't pull you off course. Validation is the currency of the insecure. It's what people seek when they're unsure of their own worth. But when you live from purpose, you no longer need others to agree with your direction. Their interruptions may delay your sentence, but they can't rewrite your story. You realize that someone talking over you doesn't diminish your voice. It only exposes how little they understand the weight of it. And when you see that clearly, you respond differently. You stop defending, stop explaining, stop chasing acknowledgement. You start embodying confidence that's quiet but immovable. Purpose doesn't panic when it's ignored. It just keeps walking, knowing that what's meant to be heard will echo in its own time. You begin to see interruptions not as obstacles, but as opportunities. to practice patience, to refine your tone, to trust timing. Because sometimes the reason you're not being heard is that your message wasn't meant for that moment. Purpose knows how to wait without losing momentum. When you're secure in your purpose, you don't fight for position, you attract alignment. You understand that not everyone is meant to hear you, and not everyone has the capacity to receive you. And that's okay. Your worth isn't tied to who listens, it's tied to what you live. The voice that comes from purpose doesn't compete with noise, it outlasts it. So when someone interrupts you, take a breath, let them finish. You don't need to shout over smallness when your calling speaks for itself. You don't need to prove what purpose has already declared, because validation is temporary, but purpose is eternal. And when you stand in that truth, no voice in the room can silence the one within you. The most powerful person in the room is rarely the one talking the most. It's the one who knows when not to. Real strength doesn't need to fill every silence or dominate every conversation. It understands that power isn't proven through constant expression. It's preserved through discernment. The one who can hold back, observe, and choose their moment carries a deeper kind of influence. The kind that comes from presence, not performance. Because anyone can talk, but not everyone can listen, and not everyone can wait. When someone talks over you, their need to be heard immediately reveals their lack of control. They're reacting, not responding. But the person who knows when not to speak is the one who commands the room without even trying. They understand that silence isn't emptiness. It's observation. It's the space where wisdom gathers strength before it moves. It's the pause before the truth lands. The most powerful voices are often the quietest ones because their silence makes people lean in. Power at its purest doesn't need attention, it attracts it. When you choose to stay silent while others scramble for dominance, you shift the balance of energy. People begin to sense that you're not operating from ego, you're operating from awareness. And awareness always wins in the long run. Because the one who listens learns, the one who waits sees, the one who observes understands the full picture before stepping into it. That's not weakness, that's mastery. There's a rare kind of authority in knowing you could speak, but choosing not to. It's restraint that commands respect. It's wisdom that says, I don't need to prove I know. I need to decide if it's worth saying. When you hold your voice with intention, your words gain weight. And when you finally do speak, people listen differently because they know your silence had purpose behind it. The person who knows when not to talk holds true influence because their calm unsettles chaos. Their quiet focus becomes the loudest presence in the room. They don't compete for control, they carry it. Because power isn't about taking up space, it's about shaping it. And the one who knows when to be silent is often the one shaping everything. So when someone talks over you, when the room feels too loud, when you feel unseen, when your words are swallowed by noise, remember this, you don't need to raise your voice to reclaim your value. Your power was never in the volume of your sound, it's in the depth of your stillness. Every moment of interruption is an invitation to rise above reaction and anchor yourself in purpose. You are not here to fight for attention. You are here to embody authority. True strength doesn't roar, it radiates. It's the quiet certainty that no matter who interrupts, your message will outlast the moment. Because peace will always echo longer than pride. The one who knows who they are can stand in silence and still shift the atmosphere. So stop trying to be heard by everyone and start standing firm in the truth that speaks through you. Let others talk over you if they must, their noise fades. But your calm, your grounded, unshakable calm is what endures, because the world listens differently to those who don't beg to be heard. The room always quiets for the one who carries peace. And when you learn that no one can ever talk over you again, you said,